All right, what's going on, guys? Happy Sunday. We are back with a regularly scheduled content, and we are here to cover a topic that is very, very pressing to Luke's heart, especially as well as millions of people out there. This is the brand new movie from Joseph Kosinski, the director of Top Gun Maverick, the movie that is credited with saving cinema. This is the next big budget project from Apple TV Plus, which, oh man, Apple really, really needs a hit on their hands, or do they? Does that really even matter at this point? It is the new vehicle starring Brad Pitt, who is an actor who I love. Dustin and I will be covering him next in our Actors Hall of Fame. It is Formula One, the movie. This movie was announced, what was it, about 2-3 years ago? It was going to be Joseph Kosinski and producer Lewis Hamilton's next project. It was going to star Brad Pitt as an aging F1 driver who needs to get back in the game. So already we're working with a very classic formula. Old dog was great at the thing, but couldn't finish because of reasons. Gets back in with like the new crew and has to like teach the young pups how to really do this game right. You got the young hot-headed driver played by Damson Idris. You've got a stellar supporting cast: Kerry Condon, Javier Bardem, Kim Bodnia from The Witcher, Tobias Menzies in a deliciously scene-chewing, very obvious villain role. So you've got all these. You've got Aaron Kruger writing the script. So you've got already all of these like infamous tricks and tropes going into this. But for me, the question was, okay, is this going to be a movie that regular people can enjoy? Or is this going to be a movie that is like exclusively made for Formula One fans? Especially given that this is a movie that shot several of its sequences at actual Formula One, like real races. So Luke, as the resident Formula One expert in the studio, take it away from here.
I think this movie was definitely made for the general audience with F1 fans in mind. Like you said, it takes the classic sports movie underdog trope kind of thing. Old guy needs to get back in the game. So I don't think we saw much originality from the story point of view, but I guess, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that part of the movie, it worked for me. It's kind of like, you expect this kind of thing when you go into a racing movie, but the aspect that it is F1, we haven't really seen a fictional F1 movie like this. I think that's what really drew me to the movie. But F1 fans, they've been very vocal about some of their grievances about the film, and after seeing it, it was less than I expected, but as I thought about it more, it's like, oof, okay, they really took some liberties, but ultimately, it was an entertaining movie. General audiences are loving it, so I think that's what matters most. You gotta allow Hollywood to take their liberties with things like this. So,
well, and what's so interesting about this too that I found is that you have this. I feel like the first instance where you have like a major fandom other than like outside of like nerd properties. Because every time that people talk about like satisfying the nerds and the normies at the same time, it's always with one of two things: it's either comic books or Star Wars specifically. And this is, I feel like, the first instance where like, oh no, you've got like another major fandom that you
and it's especially grown since like the 2020s when the Netflix reality show came out. That exactly. It was also quite fictionalized, but still that grew a whole new audience. So it's only booming every year, so it was a good time to make this.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because there was a point, and like I said, this is how you know that this is for like an audience that's like younger than me, because I'm like, at what point did F1 kind of become this like massive hype phenomenon? Because it definitely was not while I was in college, because I would have heard about it. But
yeah, I think it's always been growing, but then you just had a whole new wave of fans with the Netflix show, and I kind of came along with that, and I've kind of grown into like. I stopped watching it because it's very fictionalized. But
was that Drive to Survive, or was that?
That's the one.
Okay, okay. So I did hear about that. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, it's so you got this massive hardcore fan base that it's trying to appease, and like you said, they definitely did dumb it down. There was only so much that they were going to really be able to dive in and go in deep with. But the things that immediately stood out to me is the fact that, first of all, this is an Apple TV production. But I feel like, unlike the two big productions that they put out in 2023, Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon, this one, in addition to just having the money put into it, you could like really feel like the visuals of this, like even like very, very heavily. Like there was a lot of money that was put into this, and it showed in every single frame. Like the driving sequences, I can say right now for me, I've seen a couple of driving sequences right now. These are some of the best that I've ever seen put to screen, like ever. Like fully, like made you feel like you were inside the driver's seat. It fully felt like one of those like 4DX, like
It is the one you go to
half
4DX for.
rendered. I mean, you really feel like the effects of it. Like I think this was it's so funny because like whenever people talk about Top Gun and like, oh man, you really felt like you were in the planes with them, and I'm like, I did, but this one, you really felt like you were in the cars with Brad Pitt and Damson Idris. And every time that they got into a crazy crash, you were like, whoa. Also, the movie is 2.5 hours long and really utilizes its runtime very well. I did not once feel bored during this. And it was probably the first instance where even though I'm recognizing and I'm picking up the tropes and the dialogue that I've heard a million times before and like the acting, like nobody was making any like incredibly like risky or interesting acting choices. Like I said, it's the thing that I said is it's funny because like I've already seen the memes come out where it's like, you know, the two groups of people arguing back and forth. And the one people are like, like this one, it was boring and generic, and they're like, it wasn't trying to break the wheel, it was trying to do something new. Oh man. What's it called? Sorry for the hiccup, Kristen. I've realized that was a timing discrepancy on my part. I apologize. Kristen is here to join us to talk about F1 as well. What's going on?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys?
Very good, very good. Happy to have you here with us. It's been a minute since we've had you on.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I'm happy to talk about F1. I want to show off something real quick that I got from the people.
Nice.
No.
So,
Nice.
Got the JP helmet.
Yes. They were kind enough to send that to me, which I thought was incredible. Cool. So I'm very excited to talk about this film.
Yeah, so real quick, so Luke and I were actually just talking about the breakdown basically between like kind of, for lack of a better word, the normies versus the diehard Formula One fans. So I wanted to like, what was your stance / relationship with Formula One before we started? Because I know Luke is a big F1 head. So what was your relationship with Formula One before like even the announcement of this movie?
I was never really a fan. I was never really into racing. So I understand people being upset how it's not properly accurate. But then again, it's not a documentary. It's a movie that's there to be entertained. But I think some F1 fans will find it entertaining. I hope, Luke, you found it to be a great watch. I just like
it is a great watch. It's not a realistic watch.
Yeah,
but
it's
not
a
great watch.
And I don't think they're like totally looking to go into that. I think someone like Jerry Bruckheimer, who is a producer of it, Tom Cruise, who's also like a producer of it, they just all want to go to be entertained because, you know, they're all the movie guys. They want to get people in the seats. And based on the turnout, my showing was sold out. People are interested. And this is like the kind of summer movie that they were looking for. I'm sure Tom wanted that audience turnout when the latest Mission Impossible came out, but this is like the summer movie. So yeah. I think that answers the question. I hope I answered it properly.
I think the most notable thing about not only this movie, but also 28 years later when that came out last weekend is I saw both of these movies at about 10 o'clock on a Thursday night.
Oh, dang.
And the theaters had people in them. I mean, they're not obviously not going to be packed because it's 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, but the theaters had people in them, like a decent amount too. And everybody was being quiet and everybody was being respectful and everybody was being courteous. People were actually into the movie. And I'm like, okay,
people were very
this is I'm like, this is a good sign. I'm like, this is a very, very good sign.
I love it when people like react, especially to that one scene that we get in the middle of the movie where, you know, that jerking scene, there was like that whole fire that happens. Everybody was freaking out, including myself. It's a great movie where, like I said, this is like the summer blockbuster feel where there's so much reaction. It's getting people in the seats. So it's a fun ride. And I'm very happy with the turnout where people
Pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like that's the thing that's been so interesting about June as a blockbuster month because so May, getting into the summer season, right? May was more of like a typical blockbuster month, right? You had the Marvel movie that opened it, you had the weird indie in the middle, and then you had like another giant blockbuster for Memorial Day with Mission Impossible, right? So May was a very typical classic summer month. But I've enjoyed June in the sense that I feel like with the exception of Ballerina, every one of these movies that's come out in June has been rather a bit of an unconventional blockbuster because you had the Phoenician Scheme and Bring Her Back double feature, which opened wide to kick off the month. And those both seemingly got a decent amount of acclaim and love. You had Materialists, which a lot of people, that was another movie that like on 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, a decent amount of people showed up to see that. And I was very, very impressed.
Pedro Pascal summer. People are
really
going to show
is.
up for that.
It really, really is. I have severely underestimated the power of Pedro Pascal as a star, even though I still think he's the most overrated leading man we have right now. I'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, the last 2 weeks of 28 years later in F1 have really showed that, like, okay, like we don't have to keep like the new and interesting kind of films just to like the smaller indies. We can really experiment around with the blockbusters. Now, granted, exceptions, right? 28 years later has Danny Boyle and Alice Garland working behind the scenes, and those guys are not going to do anything remotely conventional. And this movie is produced by Apple, who again are not Hollywood mainstays, so they can kind of do what they want, like. What was so interesting is the fact that about those two movies that I mentioned before that they did back in 2023 was the fact that, and I guess you could kind of throw Argyle into that mix too, even though Argyle was largely a failure in all senses.
You could even say the other one that came out, the Sky one with Scarlett Johansson, the Moon. What is it?
I know it. Fly Me to the Moon. Yeah. Oh, I keep forgetting about that one.
That was a great movie.
Oh man. But you could say that like Apple's like really experimenting around and like, yeah, let's basically, for lack of better, we're doing like the original Netflix model. Like, let's just give these talented filmmakers just blank checks basically, and sometimes it works with Killers of the Flower Moon and sometimes it doesn't, like Napoleon or Argyle. But what's it called? But what's so interesting about F1 is this is like the first like attempt at like a mainstream, like just a fun summer blockbuster. And I think that what's so interesting is because it's Apple, and because in a weird way they have so much better access to like user data because they're Apple. I feel like in a way that kind of gives them a more unique and for lack of a better word, better insight into like how to properly perceive like, okay, who's going to enjoy this movie and who isn't. It's like, is it gonna be so like I'm not saying that I'm advocating for more like user data like fucking like oversight, for lack of a better word, but at least it's good to see that in this instance it was put to good use, because it's like, okay, like we know that Formula One is really taking it up a step. We know that Top Gun was a big success. Let's try to like find some mix between the two. Oh, Brad Pitt is best friends with Tom Cruise and they've known each other forever and they kind of came up together. That would be really
with the vampire.
Exactly. They're like, okay, it would be really interesting if we made Brad Pitt like the the old school leading man here, who has to like get back into the race, pun intended. So like it's like all of these different things that are kind of like working together, and there's various moments too where like the movie does like some really clever cheeky things too, where it's like, oh, we're recognizing the obvious trope that we're doing. Like they're not even trying to keep it subtle that Brad Pitt and Carrie Condon are gonna end up together. And then like they do the thing where like when Javier Bardem comes to her door, it's like, oh, what are you talking about? He's not here. I try to maintain things professional. Like obviously the build up to the joke that we've seen a million times before, but they still managed to keep it somewhat fresh too. And then like I said, once we get to the racing too, and it helps that like I said, we have a really, really good cast. Like these are not slouches when it comes to this group of actors. Like obviously, Brad Pitt's the lead, but Damson Idris has been somebody who's been really killing it the last couple of years. Obviously, he had his show on FX, Snowfall, that was one of those shows that was really critically acclaimed, but just kind of got overlooked by the critics circles. And obviously, Javier Bardem, fresh off Dune. Carrie Condon, who's really been seeing a decent amount of success recently, having, recently been nominated a couple of years ago for Banshees of Inisherin. What's it called? Like I said, all a bunch of little that guys in there too, Shea Wiggum, exactly. In it
the ultimate that guy.
The ultimate that guy, exactly, who's in it for like 5 minutes at the beginning. So it's like all of these different little things that are like all over the place that are like showing that like, okay, no, this is like made with love and made by a filmmaker. And Joseph Kosinski, again, it's so weird tracking that guy's like trajectory. Like, is that guy the luckiest man in Hollywood, right? Going from Tron Legacy, which is admittedly great, but did not receive the proper acclaim that it should have back in 2010, to Only the Brave and Oblivion. And then he's the guy that gets selected by Tom to do Top Gun. Like, is this dude the luckiest man in Hollywood right now? I think he is.
Lucky, I would say right now, aside from directing that not great Netflix.
Well, the Spider-Head, that was one for him, one for me, where it's like, oh, like I have all this juice now. I can work with Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller and do this silly little script that I've always had. And it didn't work, but like I'm like I give props for trying.
Yeah, but I think he's had a lot of luck, and it shows given how the strong audience reaction is and the faith that Hollywood does trust him, and knowing his experience working with a lot of technical aspects than just like the, traditional filmmaking aspects. He's been pretty lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely has. Well, and the other thing too also that I like about him is that he's one of the people who he clearly always has a vision. Like, this is apparent. Like, the thing that really sets Tron Legacy apart is the fact that so he got his start in both music filmmaking, but also in visual effects as well. So one of the reasons why Tron Legacy still looks so good and so succinct, despite the heavy amount of visuals, is the fact that that is all his vision. It's not something that's like composed in post, like by a bunch of overworked VFX artists. Like, that was all originally his vision as well. And so he's clearly a guy who understands visuals and understands how they work and understands how to implement them and utilize them to the best of their ability. And it's part of the reason why this movie feels so visceral and so like real. I was talking to Luke before that, like, of all the car racing movies that I've seen, this has got to be the best, just in terms of like really making you feel like you're there in the in the cars with them.
Yeah, I think the last, you could say, racing film we got, I think that was really good, was Ford versus Ferrari. So it's been a minute since we had a great like racing film.
Yeah, it has. Like, because Ford versus Ferrari was what, 6 years ago now, I think. It's been a minute. And yeah, but even that movie, the thing about that movie is that movie was more of like not really a biopic, but it was more like a piece of history, like an adventure story. Mm-hmm. This is just a gigantic summer blockbuster. So obviously, by virtue of what they set out to accomplish, they're gonna feel like different movies. And what I really, really appreciated about this one is that what's it called? Is that it still like kind of had that heart, that charm, if you will, that like I personally just felt like was missing from Top Gun, that I thought was only there for moments, which is part of the reason why I'm still not as big on Top Gun. Because for me, because you know what the thing is that it's ultimately the difference that it comes down to between Cruise and Pitt. Cruise, no matter what he's in, he has to be the star of everything. Like, everything has to be about him. It always has to be. And sometimes it works, like for Mission Impossible. And for Top Gun, it just doesn't. Because I think that just, I just don't think the original Top Gun is that good. So I think that's why Top Gun, for me, Maverick, just doesn't work as well. Because it ultimately comes down to, how much you love the original and how nostalgic you are for the original. And for me, I'm just like, I didn't think the original was that good. So
see, that's interesting, because I don't think the original is that good, but I think Maverick's like the greatest thing ever made.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
I love Top Gun, but I think Maverick is 10 times better.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm like, it doesn't matter how I explain it, because it's not really going to make sense. It's just one of those things where just like, for me, like feeling wise, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
but for Brad Pitt, right? So Brad Pitt is a guy who, again, you know the thing that everybody has said about him. He's a character actor stuck in a leading man's body. It's the fact that even for all his good looks and his charm, the fact that he still is able to like do the work and really pull out like different like little interesting things, that is still able to turn out like a bizarro performance, like a Burn After Reading or a 12 Monkeys or a I'm trying to think of some of the other weird ones that he's done. Like in his younger days, he did like that movie Cool World with Gabriel Byrne, which was like one of several wannabe Who to Frame Roger Rabbits. Like, he's always doing interesting work, like a movie like Killing Them Softly, like that movie, like not at all a typical leading man movie. And so I like that even in something like this, which could not be more classically leading man if it tried, he's still able to like get down and dirty and gritty. And it's like, you feel that he's like kind of, a washed up old has-been, and like he feels it, and it's the fact that even though he's felt like the irony being that for somebody like Cliff Booth, which was kind of like the beginning of like his return to form, like this great like late career renaissance that he's been having, he still felt like kind of younger in that. And now it's like between Babylon, it's still interesting how he's able to do these parts where he is finally expressing his age. He's going to be 62 this year. Like, he's not young, but you still like can get the sense of like, oh man, like he's still got it. He's still doing the work. He's still like feeling and finding new and different things to do with these characters that he's playing. When anybody else in his position would be just like coasting at this point. So the fact that he's still, like, for lack of a better word, showing that he's just as good of an actor as he is a movie star, that impresses me, Like, you really get the sense from him that, like, even though now he's one of a million different people to play the old washed up guy getting back into the game, like it doesn't feel that classically cliche. I don't know, Luke, what are your thoughts on Pitt specifically in this movie?
Yeah, I think the 30 million paycheck probably helps a bit too. But yeah, this feels like a bit of a legacy role for him, kind of like Maverick was like a we're acknowledging that Tom Cruise is getting old, and here we're acknowledging that Brad Pitt is getting old. 'Cause we had Bullet Train not that long ago, where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's a fun action movie with Pitt as the lead. But this is really, it's like, yeah, this guy's old. He really shouldn't be here, but he is. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's where where the story comes out of. So I think Pitt is, he's just always been really solid. We think of him as like this more popular movie actor, like Ocean's trilogy, Inglourious Basterds. But like you said, he's a character actor in the leading man's body, but he delivers every time. And yeah, he's like, you kids just gotta get off their phones and drive, man. So he really embodied Sonny Hayes in this one.
Yeah, still the funniest line in Mission Impossible. You kids shouldn't spend this much time on the internet. I'm like, okay, like we're doing this, but yeah, and also like you could think of a better, like, for lack of a better word, like older name, like Sonny Hayes. Like that's such a classic, like obviously, like I know it's
like
80s,
very old school.
Yeah, it feels like an old school name. Like the whole movie, you're right, it's an acknowledgement of Brad Pitt, like like getting older. But even Damson Idris is not like the typical like hotshot cocky kid, like they don't give him like the tragic like working his way up from nothing backstory. They don't make him like an actual genuine piece of shit. Like they do actually develop like a genuine rivalry, him and Brad Pitt, because they both have unique skills based on their respective backgrounds and them coming up in racing. They both have different approaches. They're not friends at first. They the first they see eye to eye, and then eventually they're rivals again after that accident, and then they end up coming together for the end. And even the ending, I will say, it went in a direction that I wasn't expecting. And the fact that this movie keeps you on your toes all the way until the end. I really liked it. It was good stuff. It was of course the bit. Of course, there was some manufactured drama where the mom like yelled at him after he got into the accident, and he didn't tell his mom that, like, oh no,
the accident was 100% Pierce's
right,
fault.
exactly.
I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah,
anyone watching would
anybody watch it. And no, it's not even just that it's clearly his fault, but the fact that Brad Pitt was telling him on the radio, like, yo, do not do that. Like, take it slow, take it easy, follow the directions, that he purposefully disobeys him.
Yeah. Like no one in the history of F1 has tried to overtake in that corner.
Yeah, it was just like, that was the part where I'm like, okay, this is really manufactured just in order to create like an extra half hour. Yeah, just to create an extra half hour of extra drama.
Although there was a very similar crash that a car got launched up quite high. Not as high as in the movie, but like 80% as high. So yeah. So
now, Luke, the question: better crash sequence, this or the crash sequence at the end of Ferrari?
Oh,
I haven't seen Ferrari, but I've seen the clip of where it flies up and rolls over the crowd.
Rolled over the crowd, yeah.
I haven't seen that movie, so I've only seen that scene. But,
and Michael Mann is such a madman that I would 100% buy if he shot that practically. Even though I know he didn't, but I would 100% buy if he shot that practically, because just that's how nuts he is. He's like, kill a couple of Italian bystanders. Nobody will miss him anyways. I can totally see him doing something like that. But yeah, Ferrari, not as good of a movie. But that sequence, I'll remember that sequence for the rest of my life. But yeah, so. Now, for the back to the actual Formula One pieces, like, Luke, obviously, I'm assuming you noticed like the bits and pieces. You're like, okay, that was good, like shot at a Formula One race. Like, was it more so like the like the leading up to the race sequences, or was it like some of the actual racing sequences as well? Like, was in there?
I definitely recognize like bits where I've seen like behind the scenes clips of them filming, like the first race that Sonny is at, the British Grand Prix. Like that's the first thing they shot. There was like a big like, oh, we're doing this. Like it's like a new thing, like actually collaborating with the sport. Haven't really seen that in filmmaking before. Obviously, they don't actually race with them. That's the magic of the VFX, like making seamless transitions, painting over real cars and coloring them with the Apex GP colors, or just inserting the cars. So I think this movie, I don't care how good the avatars look, I think this should be like a serious VFX contender. There was some bits where I'm like, oh wait, that car just changed from the 23 version to the 24 version, so they definitely had some reshoots in there. But I think in terms of the racing, like how it's captured, absolutely flawless. What happens in the racing, like Sonny Hayes deliberately causing 3 safety cars, no, he'd be out of the race. Like, we have a magic upgrade that suddenly makes us the best team. Like no, after we haven't scored a point in 2.5 years, no. So things like that, I get it. As long as it's shot well, I'll allow it. So
Also,
I got that part
the
across.
very obvious Ted Lasso of, you know, coming back to a team that is like all the way at the bottom and basically about to be like sold to the investors could force a sale to all the way to make it their way all the way, you know, up to the top of the rankings. Like I said, Apple TV struck gold with Ted Lasso, and they are going to continue to try and milk that sort of storytelling all the way up until the end. Yeah. Really only a couple of other things that I wanted to hit as far as that goes. So this is really the big one. And this is kind of really my only real point of contention. Because I like the movie. I had fun. I watched it with a guy who was an F1 guy, and he was really enjoying it. And he was really, really having a lot of fun with it. So now here's the big one. Because originally, obviously, right, this movie was supposed to be called Apex, right? And so I'm
should have called it Apex.
They should have called it Apex. And then after a while, they renamed it F1 the movie. So I'm like, at what point? And obviously, again, they knew that they were going to have to shoot it with F1's permission, which means that the actual Formula One, corporation, conglomeration, what have you, there was going to be like definitely some oversight and some suggestions that they had. So my question for you guys is: movie or F1 product placement? What are we thinking? Because this is ultimately, because I was talking with a coworker of mine. And now, granted, he is very anti-car, so there was that. But he's like, yeah, I'm not going to enjoy it because at the end of the day, no matter how good it is, it's just going to be more Formula One product placement, and that's going to be great for the Formula One fans. And I'm like, yeah, but you know that normal people are going to enjoy it too because they're just going to go and they're just going to watch a car racing movie and they're going to have a lot of fun because it's exceptionally well made and the money's really there and they've got like a bunch of giant movie stars too. So, but that really is kind of where I think the discussion is worth having, because if the price to pay in order to get more movies that look this good and that are this big feeling and this entertaining with this budget of a price tag is they have to be made by tech companies on behalf of the corporations that they are doing, like say they want to do like an E3, like they want to do like a fucking like another like specialized sports kind of a thing. You know, obviously I'm not doing a good job at listing off specific examples, but if the price to pay in order to get more movies like this is going to be that you basically have, for lack of a better word, 2.5 hour long commercials for these things, which one could make the argument that that's what this was. I don't know. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Luke, you want to start?
I think it's definitely an interesting conversation to have. I didn't really see it that way because they're just like, it's a very fictionalized story. It's not, I don't like it could sell. It's hard to say because I was sold on F1. It's more of a question of are other people now sold on F1 after seeing this movie? So maybe I'm not the right person to ask. I think it's good if there are more F1 fans. Is it like you said, it's a product movie sort of thing? I didn't feel that. Still felt it had plenty of heart to avoid that. It doesn't feel like studio mandate type stuff. I don't know. I think it was just a new idea to expand F1 and use filmmaking as like a collaboration, like a new frontier of the sport and movies collaborating. F1 is owned by Americans as of like 2018 maybe. So maybe that played a part.
I did not know that.
And we had the Vegas edition a few years ago. So yeah, I think it worked out for the better for every party involved. It helps the movie and helps F1. So I think all sides come out happy.
Not like F1 really needed that much help though.
No.
They're already worth like billions of dollars.
Yeah,
global. They're a global franchise that everybody's involved in. But yeah, it really was a thing of where it came out of nowhere. Where just like everybody who I was talking to, like first my brother, then just random people that I would just meet like at like an acting school and shit. They were like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big Formula One fan." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Since when did Formula One become so big?" Like I'm like, I feel like this just kind of came out of nowhere.
How the Formula One like fan base is. Like they have that big Netflix show docuseries. Like I didn't even know that. Like I knew the show existed, but deep down there's like this whole fan base now that this movie's coming out, and it's like, oh yeah, the fans are really coming out, and you don't realize who is an F1 fan and who isn't. And you know, it's interesting to see that.
Yeah. Kristen, what are your thoughts on the whole this movie being potentially just an F1 product versus an actual movie and what that means going forward?
I didn't really see that, like, picking back off of Luke here. I think he did a really good job explaining that. I didn't see this, like, as a full product placement for F1. I just saw it as we're making a movie about F1. here's the story. If you want to be interested, come see our movie. Like, that's how I saw it. I didn't really see it as a product placement, but it does make me curious about F1 in general and maybe potentially exploring into that world. So I didn't really see that. But yes, there is product placement clearly all over the film. But you know what? It works because, there's so much product placement in F1 racing. So
that is true. Yeah. That there is.
I think they did. I think that's part where I think the film there is like a little bit different if you're going to talk about product placement, given somebody who has worked in product placement before.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I feel like if anybody would have like great insight into that, it would be you. So.
Yeah. So they did a good job. I will say, as someone who has worked in the product placement field, they did a good job of like squeezing all that stuff. They got so many sponsors. I don't think they're like in your face, like saying buy our product, but they make it visibly enough where it's like it feels organic to be part of the F1 universe.
Right. I guess
you have to wonder what Michael Bay's F1 would have looked like.
Yeah.
Lot less seamless transitioning.
Lot more explosions, more car accidents, more technical stuff.
That car crash in the middle would have that explosion would have like lit the atmosphere on fire, kind of like what
and that would have happened like 30 minutes into the movie instead of like an hour and something.
And there would have been way more fist fights. There would have been a lot more yelling. There would have been a lot more just craziness and pandemonium. There definitely would have been a lot more terrible jokes.
Maybe a transformer would have showed up.
It's very possible. It's very possible. It's very possible. I guess just like the reasoning why I went with that is because like the movie was originally called Apex and then they retitled it F1 the movie, literally. So I'm like, oh, you're just literally like making that the title of your movie. Okay. Just not even hiding away from it. But so that was just kind of a question that percolated on my mind. And yeah, we can have the Michael Bay discussion now, just because I feel like it's worth it. And I feel like in a weird way, like the timing like was really weird about how they announced it. So famously, Michael Bay, who has not made a movie since 2022's Ambulance, which I personally think is a travesty because I still think that's like the best movie he's made in years.
Yes, I agree to that.
Heavily rumored to be doing first a Skibbity Toilet movie, then some movie with Sydney Sweeney, because that's what the internet does now. Is revealed that he is coming back to the Transformers franchise, a franchise that he said multiple times he would never make another movie before he made 2 more movies in them. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited. We are truly reliving the late 2000s. We have a Republican president that has brought us into war with the Middle East again. And Michael Bay's back directing Transformers. Truly,
we're going back in time. We're going back in time.
No. We never left. That's the difference. We've just been in a time loop. We've been in a time loop this whole time. That's what it is. Time is a flat circle, as they said in the first season of True Detective. But yeah, I couldn't be more excited, honestly, because I have very few things to get excited about when it comes to these things now. So yeah, the fact that one of my all-time favorite directors for, probably the worst reasons possible, but I don't care because
you and I are the only ones, Dom, who have
we understand. We understand what it is that he's trying to go for, okay? Nobody else gets it. He has a very, very specific way of making movies. And he is coming back to one of my all-time favorite franchises. I don't care what anybody says. The Transformers franchise is incredible. Anybody who says differently just doesn't understand. And yeah, and all I'm going to say is if he finally gets the chance to make his Unicron follow-up that we never got to the last night, it could be cool. Also, the fact that Josh Cooley, who directed the Transformers 1 movie that came out last year that was actually really surprisingly good, made my top 10 of last year, is also directing another live-action Transformers movie. There's a couple other projects in development. They are still also planning on going forward with the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover that was hinted at the end of Rise of the Beast. So,
oh my God, I remember that. Like that was like a thing for a while.
That was a thing.
No word.
Yep,
and
I
completely forgot about that.
Supposedly it's happening. So I mean, Luke, you and I, we immediately talked about this. This is like our cat. This is like our wet dream. Basically, was like our guy coming back to our franchise. For the return of the Bayhem.
Yeah, I'm not
Michael Bay.
Huge on the last 2 Bay Transformers movies.
I don't think anybody is.
I don't think anybody, not even us.
No, we can't even defend that. As soon as I saw the Romeo and Juliet shot, I'm like, I can't defend this. I'm like, this is too stupid.
But I think now that there's been some distance from those, they can learn some lessons. Michael Bay can make a good-looking Transformers movie because Rise of the Beast, it's quite like no one's sweating. Like you watch the first 3, like Shia LaBeouf, he's always drenched in sweat.
Yeah.
So it'll make a good-looking movie with real explosions.
So
Just
then
get him a decent script. And
Yes.
get John Turturro back.
Yeah, seriously, get the old writers out of there. Get them an actual script. No, I was literally saying it's like, yo, if they get like the four, it's like Shia, Megan Fox, Josh Duhamel, Tyrese Gibson, and John Turturro. They're like, if they get those 5, it'll get a bigger reaction than fucking Endgame did. Kristen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you both ready if Shia LaBeouf makes his return?
Oh, I'm more than ready. More than ready. Listen, the man may be an unhinged, deranged lunatic in real life, but man, that dude can still act. He can still act. That's all I'm gonna say. Even if he is a fucking deranged, insane person in real life who's lost his mind multiple times.
Yeah. But apparently he found the good old Christian light, apparently, and let's see what happens with that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we all know what that really means.
Yeah.
So
I know too.
We all know what that whole born again bullshit really means. Let's not kid ourselves here.
Do you think that's a publicity thing? Because I think so.
I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming so, but like, I don't know. Like that dude, his mind is just like a bag of just like unhinged rabbits, basically.
Yeah.
Like he has been broken like again and then some, like over and over and over again. I would be amazed if he just has any semblance of sanity left. You know,
he's gonna restart his career multiple times.
Well, he already has, hasn't he? Like, or tried and failed a couple of times.
Yeah.
So listen, he's still a good actor. You know, Megalopolis is not his fault. So. Even though he was part of the process, you know, Coppola was saying, he's like, yeah, I want to work with problematic actors. It's like, oh, but then you wonder why your movie turned out the way that it did. But, man. But yeah. So final thoughts and star ratings for F1. Luke, as the resident F1 fan of the room, starting with you.
I went in cautious because like, okay, the story's not going to be like blow me away. There's going to be some discrepancies with the realism that I have. But as long as it's shot well, as long as the racing's exciting, if it's a more exciting movie than an actual F1 race, like I'll consider that a success, and it definitely was. So, solid 4 stars for this one, like a high 4 stars. Yes. Absolutely, go and see it. It's an awesome experience. Yeah,
I agree. Just from a visual standpoint, it is worth watching in theater. Kristen, your final thoughts and star ratings for F1.
Okay, so we didn't get to mention the GOAT, Hans Zimmer with the score.
That's right. Oh, man.
So I thought that was stellar.
Yes.
I was like, we're back. Cinema is here. Cinema is back. I love it. And it was great. It was fun. I think it's a good film for like all ages. Like I saw young kids even in the audience and they were really excited about it. I love Brad Pitt in this film. I think this might be my favorite performance of his since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think this is, like we had mentioned, a legacy role. And he was the punk rock of racing in this film, as that line is mentioned in the film. And yeah, I thought it was a fun ride. And I thought Joseph Kosinski did a very, very good job. Is it as stellar as Maverick? No, but I still had a blast. And I still think it's worthy to see in the cinema. On my scale, this might get an honorable mention at the end of the year, but I give it a B+.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Just technical aspects in the story.
It's a passing grade.
Yes.
Yes, passing grade.
Passing grade.
Very close to an A, but just a technical stories with the, you know, how we were saying about the forced, you know, accident thing and that little monologue. I didn't think that was needed. So like, just like little things like that. And the runtime could have been like cut drastically down.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely that crash and everything that happened after the fact. I'm like, oh, so this is where the extra half hour for what would have otherwise been just a great 2-hour movie came from. Okay, got it.
Wait, one thing. Do you think it was necessary for them to cut that one character? Because I've been seeing so much.
Yeah, the Simone Ashley character. I need to know what part she would have played in the movie in order to determine that answer. The answer.
I think she would have been Idris's.
She was going to be like a love interest.
Oh,
I don't know if there's room for that.
TBD.
They also shot a scene of Pitt collapsing on the track after the last race.
Right. And like they seem to be hinting at that as well with the whole like fugue vision state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'll have to come back to that. I'll have to ponder that because I can see the arguments for both sides. So I got to figure out like kind of, you know, especially in the runtime and, you know, again, certain editing choices they made. Again, this movie also took a long time to film. I'm pretty sure this was originally filming in 2023. They had to delay it because of the strikes. They finished filming it in 2024, also going along with the F1 filming schedule. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff also happening behind the scenes of the movie that we didn't get a chance to mention as well. But Yeah, the Hans Zimmer score. Yeah, that was the thing. Like, it's not his best score, not even close to it. He was kind of coasting a little bit. And ironically, Luke, I was getting a couple of vibes of like Jablonski's Transformers score, ironically enough, in Hans Zimmer's score. So that I thought that was
I thought it was
funny.
best. He was doing his best impression of Nine Inch Nails, like
A little
Challenger
bit,
type stuff.
a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, it was really funny how like is Zimmer like started to like mimic other people here. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But
And I like most of the soundtrack that was made for this movie.
Oh yeah,
The
shout out to
album.
the soundtrack. That soundtrack is like a great summer
Incredible
soundtrack.
soundtrack.
I mean, that I'm not a Tate McRae fan, but I love
I
that
am.
song. I'm not surprised, Tom.
Yeah, I know. That shouldn't come as any surprise at all. In fact, this is a really funny story. So part of the reason why I hated Y2K so much was this is after the fact. This is like one of the funniest things ever. Is I watched Y2K with Dustin, right? We both hated it.
Y2K was trash.
It was awful.
So
It was
bad.
It was on both of our worst of the year, right? And the kid Leroy is in that movie, right? And I'm like, wow, that guy sucked. Like, what was that American? He was terrible. And Dustin, so I had written my letterbox review for the movie, right? And Dustin was like, oh, it's a good thing I didn't tell you who that Kid Leroy is dating before you wrote that, right? I'm like, why? Who's he dating? He's like, he's dating that pop star Tate McRae. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? He's like, that milquetoast little wiener right there is dating her. I'm like, how? Like, I almost docked the movie an extra star just for that. He's that's like a funny little tidbit right there that I always throw out there. But yeah, my final thoughts on F1. Really good movie, really solid, really fun, really entertaining. It's the definition of a popcorn movie. It's the definition of a popcorn movie. You're going to have a really, really good time watching it in theaters. It feels big. It really feels like your place in the seats. The script itself, the drama, it's not the best, but again, that's not what you're going for. As they even say, they're not trying to break or rewrite the wheel. You know, they're just trying to do something solid, fun, and entertaining. And they did that, and it delivers, and it's got some really fun tidbits in there as well for the Formula One fan. So I think as far as actually striving to achieve something that goes for the best of all worlds, appeases the normies and the F1 fans, this movie did it. Plus, it has Brad Pitt, who is, again, in having the career turnaround of his life right now. So it just makes me really excited to see what other stuff he has coming up after this. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining us. Luke and I will be back tomorrow in order to do SOS, the next installment for our Talkin' Lost Season 2 recap before we get into the final home run as we get into July. Oh, man. Now we're in the traditional blockbuster season where we have Jurassic World, Superman, Eddington, and Fantastic Four that we will be covering in July before we get into August, which is looking to be like one of the most insane Augusts in my lifetime, possibly. So we will see you guys over the course of those next 2 months as we begin. I can't believe we're already halfway through the summer. It is nuts to me how fast this year is moving. Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. Busy summer. But a lot of movies coming up. But you know me. I always deliver the top 10 in January and February. I'm hoping that F1 will be on that list. I don't think it'll be at the top of the list. A lot of promising movies coming out in the rest of the year, including in July and August. So we'll see where it lands there.
Indeed. Kristen, thank you once again for joining. Where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Well, I'm happy to be here, Dom. Thank you so much for having me. You can follow me at Miss Filmingo on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and yeah, I'm also the co-host of the M&K Productions podcast. I know you had my friend Mac on to discuss 28 years later. I saw the episode. It was very fun. I loved hearing Mac's take because I know how much that franchise just means so much to him. So I love seeing that discussion. And yeah, you can follow us on there, the M&K Productions podcast. And yes, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, and I will be again on. I will be coming on your guys' show to review Thunderbolts as well when you guys eventually get to that, and also I'm coming on Mac's podcast as well in a week from today in order to do our 2000.
We got our David Lynch episode actually next.
What?
Our next episode is David Lynch, actually. So I was going to talk to you about that. That's another discussion for.
I gotta finish his filmography, and I gotta catch up on Twin Peaks as well. But TBD on that one for sure. I definitely want to be in on that if possible. And you guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin' TV Podcast across all platforms. You guys know all the rest. I will see you guys next time. We're covering Jurassic World next week. Oh boy, we're back. We're never getting away from
We're going for the Odyssey trailer, hopefully.
Yes, we're going for the Odyssey trailer. That's where we're going. Fuck those dinosaurs. I'm sick of them. I'm sick of seeing the T-Rex trying to chase people. It's dumb. We'll see you guys next week on Talkin' TV.